Guys keep following. I'll keep doing these every Tuesday. So they're Tech Talk Tuesdays with GB3. I'm the third George. Hi Steve, hi Bill, hi Gary. Very thankful for you guys to come on. And this is going to be mostly about new late model Harley Davidsons and Harley Davidson modifications, but the engine is still the engine, and there's a lot of cool stuff. Harry and Alan, hi y'all. There's a lot of cool stuff about engines and gasoline and tuning and all that stuff. So I can't cover everything that I want to cover in one episode, so you guys be patient with me and let's go over a few things every week. And like I said, the frequency and the amount of people that are watching is going to dictate how far this goes and how much we do. I enjoy it. I enjoy sharing it. It's a great gift to be able to have all this information stored up over these years and things I've done wrong, like hundreds and thousands of things of learning how to do it, by going through the gains and the losses. But I tried to make a kind of a list of the things that would be good to cover on our Tech Talk Tuesdays, and it's funny, I got so many on my list that I had to go through and pick out just a few to talk about because of the time that we have. I think 15 to 20 minutes is good to do these, and I want to share that with you. I noticed Anthony and a couple of guys, I want you to know I'm saving these. I think this is Tech Talk Tuesday number 4. So far I've saved them all, and I'm going to move them over to YouTube. We're going to do YouTube. Star Racing has its own YouTube channel. Haven't used it in a long time since we were doing professional racing, and but I'm going to reactivate it and be able to put these episodes on YouTube, so you'll be able to go back and watch. And when you surf around and find that I did Tech Talk Tuesdays on Wednesday or Thursday or Friday or whatever day you want to watch it, we'll be able to have it on there. So yeah, I'm going to save them and share them with YouTube. I think that's a good plan. I'm seeing lots of names, people new, I don't know, some I know. But like I said a minute ago, there's a lot of folks that the more you guys watch, the more I'll be able to be able to do this, because I'm not doing it just to watch myself, Jackie and Julie watch me enough, and Ron and Randall and Monica and Maggie, the ones that work here, they already talk to me enough and listen to me enough. So this isn't for them, this is for you. And sometimes people call every day and they ask all these questions, and we're really learning a lot. I know I've been doing it for a long time. I'll be 65 this year, next week, I think it is. This will be the 65th annual U.S. Nationals. I see some of you guys on here are going to go to the U.S. Nationals and race, and I've had a lot of great experiences there. And you saw last week the Wally cases where we had lots of wins there. We learned a lot racing there. It's a long race, man. You get there on Thursday and you qualify one time on Friday, you get 2 runs on Saturday, you get 2 runs on Sunday, then you race on Monday, and a lot of people get worn out because the hype is so big for so long. It's easy to kind of rise up and peak out before Monday. So it's if you guys are there racing, and I see some of you names on here going to be racing there, take your time, enjoy the trip, have a nice Friday, have a nice Saturday, have a nice Sunday, and make a good Monday, and I think you'll enjoy your trip there a lot better. But one thing that's been, people have talked about a lot is stuff like our normal day-to-day job here is we take late model Harleys and we make them go faster and make more horsepower. And one thing we did notice over time is the stock Harleys, they come from, when you buy a new one, say a 96 twin cam or a 103 twin cam or a 110 twin cam, or a 107 Milwaukee 8 or a 114 or a 117 Milwaukee 8. They're very common in how much power they make per cubic inch. Why do they keep making them bigger? Well, it's so they'll make more power. If you do everything right, like Harley has this number that I don't know if it's a target or not, but they make, say, 0.75, sounds terrible, to 0.8 horsepower per cubic inch. So that means that like 103 at 0.75 would only be like 75 or 78 horsepower, and that's what they make at the back tire, stock. So what we are learning to do is how to turn that into a better number, and we do it with our Thrasher kits. I was going to read a note here: the correct head work, flow, pipe, air cleaner, throttle body, better bore and hone, and ring package and pistons, and add a few cubic inches, and then of course the camshaft design with the opening closing events with the lift, and then of course a good tune on the chassis dyno. This bumps us up to an amazing 1.2 to 1.22 horsepower per inch from 0.7 to 0.8. So if you take a stock twin cam at 103 horsepower, a 103, and we put our Thrasher 107 kit in it, it's only 4 cubic inches, but the rate we gain from say 0.7 horse to 1.2 horsepower per inch gives us 40 or 50 horsepower. And it's not only just from the cubic inches. So going to the Milwaukee 8, backing up a little bit, the stock 107 makes about 80 horsepower. The stock 117 makes 90 or 95 horsepower. That's still the same thing. That's still somewhere around 0.7 to 0.8 horsepower per cubic inch. There's a little range there. That's only 4 or 5 horsepower difference, but the Thrasher kit that we do, we find little pieces of what makes it more power. Of course, the pipe adds more power. Headwork is worth almost 20 horsepower. The correct air cleaner, correct throttle body, and then of course the camshaft, and then setting the clearances right, getting the deck height right, getting the compression ratio to 10.8 or 10.7 to 1. I'm going to talk about gasoline and those limits. But the goal here, when you do a touring bike that you can ride just like a stock motorcycle, that limit, the gasoline is the limit, y'all. It's not who does the best engines, who does the most of this or most of that. There's only so much pressure you can make with 91 or 93 octane gasoline. So our job here is to find that limit and to get there. If you put more compression ratio in it, you should pick up a little bit of horsepower, but there's only so much you can make with gasoline. So we have 3 kind of tunes we do. We do touring, we do street strip, and then we do all out race. And they're not that far apart in the horsepower per cubic inch deal, but if I try to remember right, it's about 0.8 stock, 0.8 horsepower per cubic inch. Then when you put the Thrasher kit, we go up to 1.2 horsepower per cubic inch. And then if we do a street and strip version where it has bigger valves and better flow, bigger everything, and it's not for touring, it's more for street and strip. You know, a hot rod you ride local and you want to drive it around, maybe you want to drive it to the drag strip and run it at the track. You can do that, but it tops out around 1.28 to 1.3 horsepower per cubic inch. Now, since everybody's not sitting here with a calculator, I've done a little math on here. I wrote it down for you. A stock twin cam 103 makes 75 to 80 horsepower. A stock twin cam 110 makes 84 to 86 horsepower. A stock Milwaukee 8 107 makes about 80 horsepower. And a stock 117 Milwaukee 8 makes about 92 horsepower. Now, when we do the Thrasher kit, where we do the heads, pipe, the air cleaner, the throttle body, the better cam, the better pistons, better rings, a good bore and hone, nice deck height, and we get the thing tuned up nice, that bumps our twin cam 107 to 130 horsepower. That bumps the twin cam 113 to 137 horsepower. And that's a lot of power, but it's math, it's horsepower per cubic inch. Now, if you're not making that much power with your package, that means you're leaving something on the table. And I see every day customers and friends that have mismatched packages because we read forums, we read the internet, we read magazines, and it says this fuel pump, this oil pump, this cam, this throttle body, this pipe, and each one of them is a good piece, but when they're put together in a hodgepodge deal, it's like you're trying to make some kind of a meal with all the wrong ingredients. Each ingredient is awesome by itself, but when you mix it up with the wrong ingredients, it doesn't turn out to be a great meal. And our Harley hot rods are the same way. So the Thrasher kit has got years and years and years of tweaking to get the combination of all the right parts where we can make 1.2 or 1.22 horsepower per cubic inch, which makes a 107 all the way up to 130 horsepower and 125 foot-pounds of torque, and a twin cam 113 all the way to 137 horsepower and 130 foot-pounds of torque. Now that's important. People ask me all the time, what about torque and what about horsepower? Well, the dyno sheet has a horsepower curve and it also has a torque curve. Well, at 5,200 RPM, they cross always. Horsepower crosses and the torque crosses. If you want more power before 5,200, you're going to have really big torque and not that much horsepower. If you want to have more horsepower, peak horsepower at high RPM, you're going to lose torque early and you're going to lose torque the higher you rev it, but your horsepower is going to go higher. Good example, pro stock motorcycle. It's hard to even imagine what the torque is because it's so far down below where they run them. They run the engines to, say, a Suzuki at 14,000 or 13,000 RPM. The horsepower is way up to 300 and something horsepower, but the torque is only down to 140 or 150 torque. But it's so far down, they cross. Even a pro stock engine crosses at 52 RPM. I know that sounds crazy, but it's only math. Just like horsepower per cubic inch, it's mathematics. Jackie Bryce is teaching STEM now, which is science, technology, engineering, and math. And I told her the other day when she was talking about it, my whole job is STEM. We do science. If it's combustion science or airflow science, we do technology, which is all the cool stuff we're learning about the electronics and the tuning with the dyno and stuff. And then the engineering, of course, is how to create parts that make a lot of power and last for a long time. Need lubrication. And, of course, the math. My goodness. I wasn't good at math in school, but I'm getting good at math now because I was finally able to translate some of this into formulas that make sense. And I use them as a target, not as the rule. If I have a 1.22 horsepower target per cubic inch and it falls short, I have to go back and relook at what we did and revisit the combination of the components and the work we did because somewhere we missed the boat making that combination work. Now, let's go to the Milwaukee 8, same story. Stock 107 you buy at the Harley store right now, they make 80 horsepower. Stock 117 makes about 92 horsepower. That's still 0.75 to 0.8 horsepower per cubic inch. It's a common number that's just stuck there, all right? If we do our Thrasher kit to that same Milwaukee 8 on the 107 and the 117, we put it up to either a 121 on the 107s or a 124 on the 117s. The reason that's different is there's a stroke difference between them. We end up making a 124 makes 150 horsepower with 1.2 to 1.22 horsepower per cubic inch. And it makes 140 foot-pounds. And that is a great machine to ride right there. You want to make more than that? You're not going to be touring. I'm sorry. You can make and get more horsepower than 150 horsepower out of a Milwaukee 8 and out of a twin cam. But listen, y'all, the gasoline, spark knock, ping, detonation, that is from auto ignition. That means the charge in the combustion chamber, the air and the gasoline mix, is squeezed and heated up until it ignites and it fires at the wrong time, and the engine runs horrible because it's designed, the spark plug is supposed to light the ignition. The spark plug is supposed to light the fire and make the boom and make the spark light the combustion. Auto ignition is spark knock detonation, and ping, that's when it lights itself because it got squeezed too tight or it got squeezed too tight, auto ignition, or it was too hot and superheated and lit off before it was time. We see every kind of detonation in our engines. And I see Steve Kovacs is on here. He's talking about how much he loves this 124. He's been to West Coast, been all over America with his Milwaukee 8 with his 124, and it makes a lot of horsepower. But his also will run on 91 or 93 octane gasoline, and it was tuned specifically for that. So our Thrasher kits are tuned and built with only 10.7 to 10.8 to 1 compression ratio, and we are really careful with the cam design we use because you don't want really short duration that will build a lot of low-end torque, but it also creates so much combustion pressure that it creates auto ignition or detonation at full loads at low RPM. I know it's a little bit confusing, but one day we'll do a better job on all of that, explaining the auto ignition side of detonation. Street and strip versions. This is when we put a bigger valve, a bigger cam, we put a bigger throttle body, and a bigger pipe. Now, because we want it to flow more. Well, almost all of those things will give you more top-end RPM power. Not top speed, but high RPM horsepower. It gives you a little bit more at the higher RPM. In other words, like 3,000 RPM and up, whereas the Thrasher kit gives you 2,000 to 5,000 RPM is our target. So what's really cool about this street and strip deal is you can still ride it, you still run pump gasoline, you can still run 93 octane, and you can still ride it. But y'all, this is not a touring bike. The camshaft's too big. The compression ratio is still good, but we trap more air by bigger throttle body, bigger valve, bigger cam, more airflow, and a bigger pipe. So we still trap it and create a bigger boom, but you have to be really careful with the tune so that you can still run 93 octane gasoline. But that's our limit. It stops about 155 to 160 horsepower. And if somebody says they have a touring bike with a more than 160 horsepower, then they are way smarter than we are, because we only know how to make the gasoline get there. So think about what I'm saying in cubic inches. That's 1.28 to 1.3 horsepower per cubic inch is the gasoline limit. Now, hot rod street, you want to ride it on the street, you want to take it to the track, and you don't care about 93 and you want to run a little race gas, well, now we can get serious. I don't know what horsepower limit there is there. If you put some more compression in it, you put more cam, you put bigger valves, you put it at 13 to 1 compression ratio, you put easy start cams or push button compression releases or electric compression releases where you can start the thing, it still will be great as long as you don't detonate or ping it. But when we put racing gas in it, now we're adding a whole bunch of opportunities to suppress detonation and to keep the motor running cool. Racing gasoline does not make your engine run hot. No. Racing gasoline makes your engine run cool. That's just backwards of what you think. So the most power that can be made with gasoline is the least amount of octane you can run without detonating. So think about it. If you want to make the most power you can with a stock Harley Davidson, it might be with 87 octane. Now, if you're spark knocking or pinging, you better go get you some 91 or some 93. But if you have a Thrasher kit here and we've put the correct cam in and we've got it tuned and you're at 10.7 or 10.8 to 1 compression ratio, better keep you some 91 or 93 octane gas in. Sorry. Now, when we go from a Thrasher to the street and strip version, sometimes we call it a Thrasher 2.0. And if you want information about these Thrasher kits, that's just the star racing version of maybe like Harley has like a stage 3, stage 4. This is like a stage 5 or a stage 6. So you can look it up on our site. We're starracing.com. It's been up for a long, long time since they invented the internet. It's one of the oldest websites around. But you can click on the boxes on the side where it says 107 upgrades, 114s, Thrasher kits. We have in-house version and we have mail order versions. And this is my commercial right now, just this little 15-second deal. The rest of the time is just good, solid information that anybody can use. The power curve when we go to the street strip version, okay? All the design, the head flow, the cams, the valves, all the parts, they're made for high RPM operation. And when I say high, I'm talking about moving the range from 2,000 to 5,000. I'm talking about moving it to the right on the dyno sheet. Moving it to the right. That means 3,000 to 6,000. And if I'm gonna go race it at the track and go all out race with race gas, I'm gonna make it run from 4,000 to 7,000. And that way the horsepower keeps going up and you keep making more and more power, but that makes it less street worthy, less street rideable. On our Thrasher kits for street use, well, let's start back stock. Stock has more torque than it has horsepower because it's made to run at low RPM. When we go to our Thrasher kit, we have more horsepower than we have torque, but the numbers are only about 10 difference. In other words, 130, 120, or maybe 130 horse and 125 torque. It's only 5 or 10 difference between the horsepower and the torque. When we go to street strip, it might be 15 to 20 difference between the horsepower and the torque. Torque doesn't really go down at all, it just gets left behind. The torque stays over here at the low RPM, and as we rev it, the horsepower keeps climbing and it starts outrunning the torque. So on the dyno sheet, it'll say maybe peak horsepower would be 160 and peak torque would be 140. There's nothing wrong with that engine design. It's just we just designed it to run at higher revs higher RPM, the range is higher. And like I said, it's not a touring machine. Might not even be that much fun to ride around at 2,000 or 3,000 RPM because it's made to operate at a higher range than that. Runs great at 2,000. It runs great, but it's not a lot better than it was. I'm looking at some notes here. Okay, when we go to the Street and Strip Stage 2 Thrasher 2.0, we use titanium valves. Okay, titanium valves last forever now. It's not like when we were growing up, titanium valves didn't last long. Titanium valves come in new cars. A Corvette has titanium valves. They are coated with space age coatings, CRN coating, and DLC coatings, and they hold up and they last. And they are so light that we can put a bigger cam in the engine and not have to add so much duration to use the high lift. We can start making the camshafts now where they have less duration to put cylinder pressure in and put high lift. But if you use a heavy stainless valve like comes in some of the 110s and comes in the S&S 124s and 143s, they have heavy stainless valves. So they have to be very careful with their camshaft profiles. When we go to oversized valves in the Thrasher 2.0 or our Street and Strip version, we put titanium valves in that are coated, and they're so light, the springs and the cams and the rock arms hardly don't even know they're in there. They hold up so good. And it costs more, always, when you're going to stretch the opportunities there. Okay, so one last thing before we leave the Thrashers. People write me and ask me all the time, they say, why do you suggest a 107 for my twin cam instead of a 110? Harley sells a 110 kit. Well, the 110 is the biggest it will fit with the case's bored stock size. They got a big sleeve that fits tight to the case, and then they bore it as far as it'll go, and it's about 40 thou thick, the sleeve is, where the piston comes out at the bottom, and it won't stay round, and it doesn't transfer heat well, and they run hot. 107 will last longer and make more power because we have more ring seal. We have a thicker sleeve. We have more wall thickness. We can transfer heat from the piston to the cylinder wall. We can keep the bores round. We can keep the rings sealed up. You can make more power with a well-built 107 than you can with a thin-walled 110. Same thing with the tire shredders. And look, you guys, I'm not bagging on the Harley guys at all. We need Harley shops, and I love them. I wouldn't have bikes to work on if it wasn't for cool Harley shops. So you guys out there working in the Harley stores and you have what you have to sell, this is general information. This is not me throwing a dig on anybody. And I have great competitors that sell 117s and they sell 110s for their twin cams. I'm not a fan. Doesn't fit our shop rules. Our shop rules have to have a thick cylinder wall. And if we sacrifice 3 cubic inches, we gain it back by offering more horsepower per cubic inch than the 110, 117s. You don't hardly ever see 110 twin cams making more power than our 107. You hardly ever see 117 twin cams making more power than our 113 Thrasher kit, so we sell for the 110. The reason is because we have the pressure contained in a thick wall cylinder, good cylinder walls, good pistons, good rings, transfer the heat, they don't run as hot, and they make more power. That's all I'm going to talk about on that. Going to the S&S engines, and we buy crate engines. Those are really nice engines, y'all. I don't know how you would buy a 124 new in the box for $6,000 or $7,000 that would make 130, 140 horsepower. That comes out to be, let me see what I wrote down, 1.1 to 1.2 horsepower per cubic inch. Look how much is left there. We can take that S&S engine from 1.1 to 1.1 to 1.2 horsepower per inch. And we can bump it up to 1.3 street and strip wise by doing better head work, more flow, bigger pipe, bigger throttle body, and maybe even a better cam, but for sure titanium valves so that we don't have to try and control that big heavy stainless valve to make the kind of power that's possible to make. The 143 comes from S&S. I think you can get it, makes almost 160, 165 horsepower. Same thing, it's between 1.1 horsepower per inch and 1.2 horsepower per inch. You want to make more, we got to go to these upgrades where we can get the engine to make more power per inch. We sell our Thrasher 2.0 version of a 124, makes 155 to 160 horsepower. We make a 143 Thrasher 2.0 version. It makes 180 to 185 horsepower. Same cubic inches, but we're just trapping more air and sealing it up better and taking better advantage of the individual parts. Now, if I was doing what S&S is doing and selling these engines to everybody and you have no idea how they're going to use them or how they're going to tune them, I would do it exactly like they do. You go buy you a brand new 124 from anybody, you go S&S, go in your bike, and you can drive it to California, back to Georgia, perfect. They do a great job with that. If you want more than that, you gotta look us up. Bagzilla and the Boogeyman and the 133 Milwaukee 8. We're doing over 1.4 horsepower per cubic inch. Why? How? Race gas, compression ratio, big camshafts, big titanium valves, oversized seats in the head, full out, kind of like all you can get in one, and still ride it. Look, if you put race gas in Bagzilla, or you put race gas in the 133 or 137 or 143 Milwaukee 8 engines we sell that make lots of power, you can still ride them. But look, I put in big letters, it is not a touring bike. It is not a touring engine. It is a street strip hot rod engine with racing gas. Why racing gas? So we won't detonate, we won't ping, and so the engine can run cooler. That way we can get away with shorter cam time and more aggressive camshafts and more compression ratio. It will make more power and go faster. Last thing, octane. Remember, when you're shopping and you're calling around and you're creating your dream machine and you lay in the bed at night and you're thinking about what you want it to be, remember the gasoline limits. 155, 160 horsepower. Yes, you're gonna call me out and tell me, yeah, such and such has got 170 or 160 with his 93 octane, normally aspirated engine. Yeah, that's great. I'd like to see it. I know it's possible, but we don't sell it. We sell within what you can buy at the pump. I had a guy write me a note the other day, said, I got a new 124 from you. I can't run 93 all the time, I run 91. Guess what? You're in good shape, buddy. You can run 91 octane in it. That's what your bike was built for. That's what your engine was built for. I know you're gonna get some more questions, and you're gonna wanna know more, and I just did almost 30 minutes, man. I don't know how we did it that long, but all I did was talk, and once again, I just want you to know, these are not the gospel rules. These are rules that we have developed here in 40 years. Thanksgiving, November will be 40 years we've been in business, and we learned the hard way by burning pistons and heads and motors and throwing crankshafts on the ground, running over parts. We've done a lot of things right, we've done a lot of things wrong, but we're learning as we go. And this is a lot of information. There's more to come. Please write me and tell me, send me a note, tell me what you liked about it and what you want to know about more, and I'll listen and I'll start doing it. One more thing, you guys, please put it on your calendar for the big Harley Davidson bagger race in Silver Dollar Dragway in October. I think it's October 19th, 8th, 9th, 8th.